I'm still, after all the fights you've had, in awe of the fact that you do what you do. It's mind-blowing to me.
Thank you, man. Yeah. I mean, it's not that hard to get your beat, but it was a great experience. Like, I learned a lot in there. I can't really talk.
When this fight was first announced, you had said something to the effect of this would end Jake Paul's career. After what you saw tonight, do you think that Jake should continue to box, or what do you think the future holds for him?
Yeah, no, I really take my hat off. So, I mean, we have to see if it is a broken jaw. Those injuries are very difficult to come back from. But as AJ said, like that last shot would have knocked out a lot of heavyweights.
So here's what just went down that has everyone in combat sports completely losing their minds right now. Jake Paul, that 28-year-old YouTube sensation who transformed himself into a legitimate boxer, just dropped the bombshell that he's walking away from the sport entirely. This announcement comes after what can only be called a career-ending 6th-round destruction at the hands of former heavyweight champion Anthony Joshua down in Miami. We're talking about more than just a knockout here. This was pure devastation. Paul didn't just lose this fight, he was carried out with his jaw broken in 2 places, requiring emergency surgery. Just think about this for a moment. This guy walked into that ring as this massive crossover phenomenon. Somebody who'd been gaining real momentum and establishing himself as more than just some internet celebrity playing boxer. Then Joshua's crushing right hand came thundering down like a sledgehammer, finished everything in spectacular fashion, and now we're all wondering if we just witnessed the final chapter of Jake Paul's boxing story. Here's something that really stands out though. Paul actually managed to win a couple rounds on at least one scorecard before that knockout completely changed the trajectory, proving he was holding his own before that devastating blow rewrote everything.
And then I got dropped. But yeah, I was doing good. I just think my cardio, just the mental pressure of the big guy and sparring the big people is different than the 10-ounce gloves. So I was feeling his power a lot more. But it was a great experience. Like, I learned a lot in there. I can't really
Are you in pain?
Yeah, but
Does it hurt?
It's not from like talking.
Talk to me about what your jaw feels like, because you got
It's like a baseball in there.
two
then
plates?
It just feels like
4 titanium plates.
4 titanium plates. How many do you have?
Just 1.
Wait, this gets even more intense and frankly pretty disturbing from a medical standpoint. There's footage making the rounds where you can hear someone mentioning something about a titanium rod in a hand, just adding more confusion to this already loetic situation. But here's what's definitely confirmed, and it's genuinely concerning. Jake Paul has reportedly told people close to him that he's completely burned out and mentally exhausted from enduring the kind of severe punishment that comes with competing at this elite level, and he's seriously contemplating walking away from professional boxing forever. This decision apparently solidified after that vicious knockout we just discussed, and when I say vicious, I mean it was absolutely merciless. The fight wasn't simply a defeat, it was a systematic beating. Paul hit the canvas multiple times during the contest, and each time he managed to get back up, you could see the damage accumulating on his face and in his body language. Then came that final crushing blow that shattered his jaw in 2 places, requiring immediate surgical repair and sparking all this speculation about whether he'll ever compete professionally again. The kind of punishment he endured from one of boxing's most accomplished and dangerous heavyweights, someone like Anthony Joshua, who's been dominating at the championship level for years, has apparently forced Paul to seriously question whether this is a road he wants to keep traveling down. And honestly, who could blame him for having second thoughts? There's even some audio floating around where someone clearly says, "I am retiring from boxing," which has only intensified all the retirement speculation swirling around. I'm getting
hit in the face every single day while I could be playing soccer in Saudi. I'm friends with the Saudis slash football.
Back in the day?
I was on the 18 and 7th grade.
I have a really good kick. I can run fast, and I'll knock out everyone that with us.
Now, someone please give me $1 billion, and I'll prove this message, which honestly sounds completely insane. But let's dive into what the promoters and industry insiders are saying about this whole situation, because their perspectives really illuminate just how serious this has become. Eddie Hearn, who was involved in promoting this fight and has never held back when sharing his opinions, didn't retreat from his earlier prediction about what this matchup could mean for Jake Paul's future in boxing. But you could definitely sense that after witnessing the actual fight unfold, his commentary became much more somber and thoughtful when he was discussing his pre-fight statement, where he warned that this bout could genuinely finish Jake Paul's boxing career. Hearn acknowledged that the result, as difficult as it was to watch, unfortunately validated his concerns exactly. He wasn't celebrating being correct about his prediction. He was genuinely worried, breaking down extensive detail how injuries like fractured jaws, particularly double fractures requiring surgical reconstruction with metal plates and hardware, aren't just immediately excruciating. They're mentally and physically extremely challenging to come back from, especially for a fighter who's still evolving and attempting to prove himself among boxing's elite. He emphasized that the rehabilitation process isn't simply about waiting for bones to mend. It's about all those months you're forced to stay away from serious sparring, which means your timing deteriorates, your defensive instincts become sluggish, and your natural rhythm inside the ropes completely falls apart. Then you've got the psychological element, that constant worry about getting hurt again that starts haunting you every single time you absorb a clean shot to the head, which can fundamentally and permanently change a boxer's career path and desire to engage in close-quarters combat. While Hearn did give Jake credit for his heart and his legitimate commitment to facing real competition, something plenty of doubters claimed he'd never actually do, Hearn emphasized that boxing is a completely unforgiving sport that doesn't care about your internet fame or your financial success. Moments like this knockout, these defining instances where you suffer major physical trauma, frequently compel fighters to step back and genuinely evaluate whether the bodily risk and potential long-term health damage are really worth whatever recognition or financial reward might come from pushing forward.
Look, that guy did great for someone who's been boxing for like less than a decade. He has had no real professional opponents other than Tommy Fury that were legitimate world-class boxers.
I don't even remember what happened in the Tommy.
He lost a close decision, but it was a good fight. It was a good fight, though. He's a good boxer. If he wasn't a YouTuber, people would be way more impressed with him.
Yeah.
The problem is he was like a famous kid, and then no one took him seriously.
Yeah.
But
and then he started too with like more spectacle-ish fights. People were like, "Oh, this is you." He fought, Nate Robinson, like a basketball player.
But the thing is, he knocked Nate Robinson.
He knocked him the fuck out.
And
yeah.
The way he did it that I was trying to tell people like, no. Joe Rogan, who's been analyzing combat sports for decades and has witnessed practically every type of damage that can happen to a fighter, delivered what might be the most sobering and cautionary response from anyone. After Jake Paul was knocked unconscious by Anthony Joshua and sustained that double jaw fracture we keep discussing, Rogan, speaking on his podcast with that characteristic blend of authentic concern and brutal honesty, strongly encouraged Paul to think deeply and carefully about the long-term ramifications of continuing his boxing journey at this intensity. And when Joe Rogan advises you to be cautious about brain trauma, you should definitely pay attention, because this man has observed countless fighters get destroyed by the brutality of combat sports. Rogan stressed that the damage Paul sustained in that fight, particularly those crushing headshots from an experienced heavyweight like Anthony Joshua, who's been competing at the world championship level for years, involves dangers that extend far beyond the obvious injury we can observe, like the shattered jaw. He was indicating there's a neurological and physical cost that builds up over time and simply isn't worthwhile for someone who has alternative paths and possibilities in life. Rogan discussed the serious long-term effects that many fighters battle with after their competitive days, and issues like chronic traumatic encephalopathy, cognitive problems, emotional disorders, all the conditions we're discovering more about as our understanding of brain trauma research progresses. He characterized the specific knockout shot that Paul absorbed from Joshua as delivering the impacted, and I'm quoting directly here, like 10 punches all compressed into one catastrophic moment, which is a frightening way to conceptualize what that does to your brain bouncing around inside your skull. Rogan pointed out how rapidly serious neurological damage can build up inside the ring, particularly at heavyweight, where the power exists on a completely different plane than smaller weight divisions. His warning wasn't just about this individual fighter, this single injury. It was a wider cautionary message that consistently absorbing punishment at this elite level, especially from championship caliber heavyweights, can create lasting and potentially irreversible impacts on your mental function and overall life quality, and that Paul should very carefully weigh whether continuing on this trajectory is worth the danger when he has so many other opportunities for achievement open to him.
That I'm a cokehead. My rebuttal to that was, I'll tell you what, you can test me randomly for the next 5 years for if I can test you randomly for performance enhancing the next 2 years, and I never got a response on that.
This is why Jake Paul is on PEDs. Within this past year, Jake Paul has literally hit a second puberty and aged like 10 years. Furthermore, he has acne and his hairline is receding like crazy. And people like Jake Paul are going to the best skin doctors in the world and probably are taking hair loss products that aren't even approved for the rest of us. Now, I'm not saying that Jake Paul necessarily took a steroid to make him look bigger, but he's definitely taking something that allows him to recover faster. That way he's able to train more and get better at boxing quickly.
Now here's something that sounds completely crazy and has everyone confused, trying to determine if it's genuine or just Paul being controversial like he's always been throughout his career. That was skillful, by the way, referring to something during the fight that grabbed everyone's attention. But listen to this. Paul has also allegedly claimed, based on reports spreading online and through various indirect sources, that he's thinking about deliberately using steroids as a method to disprove the persistent allegations that have been chasing him around. The accusations that he's already been using performance-enhancing substances throughout his entire boxing journey, based on the online rumors and secondhand reports we're seeing, Paul supposedly suggested that by actually demonstrating to people the visible contrast between his natural build and what he'd look like chemically enhanced, that would somehow establish that his previous physique and fight performances were accomplished naturally, without any artificial enhancement. Critics are claiming that this statement sounds completely irresponsible and provocative, the type of declaration that could get him in major trouble with boxing regulatory bodies and potentially expose him to serious legal complications. Meanwhile, his supporters think Paul is simply fighting back in his own aggressive style against years and years of rumors, suggestions, and outright accusations about his physical transformation and the power he was displaying in his earlier boxing victories. Considering that professional boxing has extremely rigid anti-doping policies and procedures, and considering the severe penalties connected to performance-enhancing drug violations in the sport, including lengthy suspensions, heavy fines, and having your results invalidated, many observers stay highly doubtful about whether Paul would actually go through with this supposed plan. Others are warning against accepting the claim as legitimate at all, arguing it might just be Paul creating drama like he's built his entire public persona around doing. Until Paul personally addresses this allegation officially, sits down and clarifies exactly what he intended and whether he's being serious, the statement stays completely unconfirmed and just contributes another dimension of controversy and confusion to what's already been an incredibly chaotic period in his boxing career. It makes it that I snore, which frankly doesn't even make sense, but somehow matches the bewilderment of this entire situation.
The people need to respect him. I don't say that only because I'm fight here in a company, but it's because Jake, the people need to respect Jake, you know? I mean, every single fight go inside the ring, everybody needs respect.
Let's break down the actual specifics of what went down in that ring, because the details are honestly pretty disturbing when you hear them explained completely. Anthony Joshua viciously shattered Jake Paul's jaw during their heavyweight clash down in Miami, and we're discussing a particular moment, a specific strike that transformed everything instantly. It occurred when Joshua's absolutely crushing right hand, the same devastating weapon that's finished so many opponents throughout his championship reign, connected perfectly in the 6th round with the type of accuracy and force that only elite-level heavyweights can produce. The punch caused an immediate knockdown. Paul collapsed to the mat and eventually resulted in the knockout conclusion that finished the fight. But the destruction from that Joshua strike extended far beyond just dropping him. The impact broke Paul's jaw in 2 distinct locations, creating what medical professionals describe as a double fracture, which is a serious and incredibly agonizing injury that was instantly obvious to everyone watching once the fight concluded. You could clearly see something was terribly wrong with Paul's face. The injury was subsequently verified by Paul's own social media update, where he actually displayed the trauma, the swelling, the displacement, all of it, clearly visible, and honestly painful to witness. Once the contest ended, and the medical staff examined him, Paul was rushed straight to a Miami hospital, where surgeons conducted what sounds like fairly complex surgery to fix the double fracture. The operation required installing 2 titanium plates, one on each side of his jaw to secure the fractured bones in position while they recover. And here's the detail that really emphasizes how severe this was. They were forced to extract multiple teeth as part of the surgical process. Several teeth completely removed because of the trauma from that single punch. Paul shared an update from his hospital room explaining the surgery proceeded successfully, according to his doctors, and that he would be restricted to a liquid-only diet for approximately a week at minimum, possibly longer depending on how his healing progresses, while he recovers from having his jaw literally rebuilt with metal hardware. Hovers.
Don't ever give a monkeys about what anyone says, because they sit at home, they're full of negativity. It's like the people that are negative towards someone like Jake Paul. Look at what he's done with his life. Do you know what I mean? So yes, it took AJ a couple of rounds to get hold of him, and then he knocked him spark out and broke his jaw. It was a frustrating 2-3 rounds maybe, because Jake was moving so much, holding, but did well, I thought. I mean, I was impressed with him. I mean, I was more impressed with his toughness, because I think that last shot would have knocked out most heavyweights. I mean, you've got to respect him, because he did what many people wouldn't do, which was get in the ring with him. And, you know, he didn't, I know he run and hold, but he also let his hands go at times. And he was in the firing line, and, you know, we got 6 good rounds in the end of actual
Is that how
work.
you see it in the end?
Yeah, I actually think it's a positive, because, you know, we could have gone in there and got it all over with 45 seconds. He's done an 8-week camp, and now he's done 6 rounds. He's got something to go back and work on with the team, and onwards and upwards for a big 2026.
Now, with all the rumors and conspiracy theories that always seem to surround Jake Paul's boxing contests, let's tackle the obvious question that people keep raising online. The devastating 6th-round knockout of Jake Paul by Anthony Joshua proved it crystal clear, beyond any reasonable doubt, that the fight was completely legitimate and absolutely not rigged or choreographed in any manner. Despite what numerous critics and doubters had been theorizing about online before the fight ever took place, promoter Eddie Hearn, who's been involved in boxing long enough to recognize when something seems suspicious, directly and emphatically dismissed all the suggestions that the contest was fake or arranged in any way whatsoever. He emphasized in several interviews following the fight that this was a fully legitimate professional boxing match with genuine consequences at stake, overseen by official boxing commissions who maintain strict regulations about these matters and connected to legal gambling markets worldwide, would make any staged or predetermined result not just morally wrong, but actually illegal and completely impossible to execute without countless people being involved in the deception. Consider the complexity of trying to manipulate a fight like this with so many oversight organizations, television cameras, officials, and betting operations watching. It simply couldn't happen. Hearn also referenced what he described as the most compelling proof that this was entirely authentic: the extent of Paul's double jaw break, which was a real injury demanding immediate surgical treatment with titanium hardware and tooth extraction. As Hearn stated directly, you absolutely don't fake that type of trauma in a legitimate fight. And there's no possibility Paul would consent to having his jaw fractured in 2 locations and undergo major surgery just to promote some conspiracy theory about the contest being manipulated. The hospital records, the surgical procedure, the rehabilitation period, all of it demonstrates without question that what we witnessed in that ring was 2 professional boxers competing at the elite level, and one of them sustained a devastating and completely genuine knockout that finished his evening and potentially his entire career.